Lily had been working at Adrian Clark's mansion for over a year, quietly going about her duties without drawing too much attention. She was a young woman, polite, careful, and always punctual, doing her job with dedication. From cleaning the sprawling rooms to preparing meals and managing errands, Lily seemed like the perfect employee. Adrian, a self-made billionaire with a reputation for being strict but fair, noticed everything in his household, yet he had never really questioned Lily. She appeared ordinary, almost invisible, and that was exactly what he liked in a staff member. But things began to change one evening, in a way that Adrian could not ignore. It started subtly. One evening, as Adrian returned home from a late business meeting, he noticed the hallway was unusually quiet. Usually, he would hear Lily moving about, humming softly, or the clatter of dishes being washed. But that night, there was nothing. He called out her name, expecting her to appear from the kitchen or the drawing room, but there was no answer. Shrugging it off, he assumed she had stepped out to run an errand, maybe picking up groceries or something similar. After all, the mansion was large, and sometimes the staff moved about without him noticing. But the next night, the same thing happened. And then the night after that. Adrian began to pay closer attention. He realized that Lily left the mansion at almost the same time every evening, just after dinner, and returned only early in the morning, before sunrise. He tried to ask casually why she went out so late, but she always gave vague answers, sometimes saying she had personal matters to attend to, other times just smiling nervously and changing the subject. Something about her behavior made Adrian uneasy. It wasn't just curiosity, it was instinct. He had built his life around understanding patterns, noticing details others overlooked. And Lily's nightly disappearance was a pattern he could not ignore. Days turned into weeks, and Adrian's curiosity grew stronger. He tried to observe without making it obvious, but Lily was careful. She seemed to know exactly when he was watching and when he was distracted. Her movements were precise, almost rehearsed, as if she had a reason to hide her actions. Adrian wondered if she was meeting someone secretly, or worse, if she was involved in something dangerous. He couldn't imagine his loyal maid getting into trouble, yet the uncertainty gnawed at him. The mansion that once felt like a place of comfort now seemed full of questions he didn't have answers to. One evening, Adrian decided to follow her, hoping to uncover the truth. But even as he tried to be discreet, he noticed Lily was cautious, almost as if she sensed she was being watched. She moved swiftly, avoiding obvious paths, and kept glancing over her shoulder. It was clear she didn't want anyone to know where she was going. Adrian's mind raced with possibilities. Was she in trouble? Was someone forcing her to sneak out at night? Or was she hiding something for her own reasons? The suspense made every step feel heavier, every shadow seemed suspicious, and every turn of the road seemed more dangerous than it really was. Adrian also found himself reflecting on Lily herself. She had always seemed so quiet, so humble, and yet now there was this mystery attached to her. He realized he didn't know her at all, not really. She had spent months in his mansion, yet the most basic things about her life were unknown. It was strange how someone could be so close and yet so distant at the same time. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the answers might change everything he thought he knew about her. The tension reached its peak one rainy evening. Adrian watched from the mansion window as Lily quietly left the house, carrying a small bag. The night was dark, and the rain fell steadily, drenching the driveway. She moved cautiously, almost cautiously, as if she feared being noticed. Adrian's curiosity became unbearable. Something about the way she walked, the careful glance she threw over her shoulder, the slight hesitation before stepping into the street, it all told him that whatever she was doing, it was important, and it was secret. He made a decision then. He would find out where she went, no matter what it took. That night marked the beginning of a silent pursuit. Adrian knew he had to be careful. He didn't want to scare her or make her defensive. He simply had to understand why Lily, the quiet maid who had always gone about her duties without complaint, was suddenly disappearing every evening. Little did he know, the journey he was about to begin would reveal secrets far beyond what he had imagined, secrets that would change his understanding of loyalty, courage, and the unexpected mysteries hidden in everyday lives. Adrian Clark could no longer ignore the strange pattern. Every evening, like clockwork, Lily would vanish into the night, leaving the mansion in an unusual silence. What started as mild curiosity had now grown into a gnawing suspicion that refused to leave him alone. He had always trusted his instincts, they had guided him through boardroom battles, risky investments, and even personal betrayals. And now, his instincts were screaming that Lily's nightly departures were not ordinary. There was more to her than met the eye. It began subtly, with Adrian observing her more closely during the day. He noticed the nervous way she would glance toward the door as the clock approached her usual departure time. Sometimes, she would pause mid-task, straighten her uniform, and check her bag as if preparing for something important. The small movements seemed insignificant on their own, but Adrian, trained to read patterns, saw a story unfolding, a story that did not belong entirely to him, yet demanded his attention. One evening, Adrian decided to confront her, but carefully. He waited until she was arranging the silverware in the dining hall, her hands moving methodically over plates and cutlery. "Lily," he said gently, "I've noticed you leave every night. Is everything all right?" For a brief moment, her hands trembled, and her eyes darted to the floor. She didn't respond immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost fragile. I have personal matters, sir. Things I need to take care of," she said, avoiding his gaze. There was no malice, no disrespect, just a quiet insistence that he not pry further. Adrian had heard excuses before, plenty of them, but something about her answer didn't feel like a lie. It felt like a carefully chosen truth, one that hid a larger story beneath it. That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He paced his study, turning over every possibility in his mind. Was she in danger? Was she meeting someone she shouldn't? Or was she simply protecting her privacy in a world that never gave her a moment of freedom? Each thought led to another, each possibility darker and more complicated than the last. He realized that this was no longer just about curiosity. This was about understanding someone he had unknowingly trusted with his home, someone who might be living a life he had no idea existed. The following evening, Adrian decided to observe her again, though more discreetly. He waited in the shadows of the mansion, just far enough that she wouldn't notice him. He watched as Lily moved through the hall, her steps quiet but deliberate. She carried a small bag, and her eyes flicked to the clock as if measuring time against some invisible deadline. Adrian's heart raced. Each detail mattered, the way she paused at the doorway, the careful glance over her shoulder, the soft sigh that escaped her lips as she stepped into the night. It was almost cinematic, and yet it was real. Adrian's suspicion grew with every passing moment. He couldn't shake the feeling that Lily was hiding something significant. The mansion had always been a place of control for him, a place where he knew every corner, every sound, every routine. And now, for the first time, someone had introduced an element of unpredictability into his carefully ordered world. Lily's secret nightly excursions were like a puzzle he had to solve, a mystery that beckoned him with every silent step she took. By the end of that week, Adrian's curiosity had transformed into a quiet obsession. He started keeping a log of her departures, noting the exact times, the duration, and the patterns he could detect. He reviewed each note repeatedly, searching for clues. The more he observed, the more he realized that this wasn't mere rebellion or a simple personal errand. Something important, hidden, and possibly life-changing, was driving her actions. And deep down, Adrian knew that discovering the truth would change his perception of Lily forever. He felt a mix of anticipation and fear. Anticipation for the secrets that were about to unfold, and fear for what those secrets might reveal. The quiet maid who had seemed so ordinary had become the center of a mystery he could not resist. Every evening, as Lily vanished into the night, Adrian's world felt a little more uncertain, a little more alive, and a little more intriguing. He was ready now, not just to watch, but to follow, to uncover the story that Lily had been carrying silently through the shadows of the night. Adrian Clark had tried to push his curiosity aside, telling himself that Lily's nightly departures were none of his business. But by the third week, the thought had taken root so firmly that he could no longer ignore it. Every time he passed by her quietly humming in the kitchen, or saw her straightening the curtains in the living room, he wondered what she was hiding. It wasn't anger or suspicion born of distrust, he genuinely respected her, but something about the way she moved through the mansion, carefully, deliberately, gave him the sense that she was guarding a secret he needed to understand. That evening, after finishing a long day of meetings and calls, Adrian sat in his study staring out at the sprawling grounds of the estate. The sky had deepened into a dark indigo, and the mansion's shadows stretched long and silent across the lawns. From his vantage point, he could see Lily moving about, preparing for her nightly routine, checking her bag, and glancing toward the clock. Adrian's pulse quickened. He knew he couldn't sit and wonder any longer. He had to find out. The decision to follow her was not spontaneous. He spent the next few hours planning carefully. He couldn't afford to let her notice him. Lily was cautious, almost instinctively so. A single misstep could make her shut him out forever. Adrian decided to follow at a safe distance, just far enough that she would feel completely free, unaware that someone was tracing her every move. He arranged for a discreet driver to accompany him, keeping the car several streets behind, and he armed himself with patience more than anything else. When Lily finally stepped out, the evening air was cool, carrying the faint scent of wet earth from an earlier rain. She clutched her small bag tightly, moving quickly but carefully, her eyes scanning the surroundings as though expecting trouble. Adrian's heart thumped in his chest as he watched her. She had no idea she was being followed, yet each movement she made seemed deliberate, as though she were performing an act that had become routine over many nights. He felt a mixture of admiration and suspense. This quiet maid was a mystery wrapped in caution and secrecy. As they drove behind her, Adrian kept his eyes fixed on Lily. She didn't take the usual streets. Instead, she maneuvered through narrow lanes and dimly lit alleys, avoiding main roads where anyone could notice her. It was as if she knew exactly where she needed to go and had mapped her journey in her mind countless times. Every turn, every pause, every glance over her shoulder made Adrian's anticipation grow. He wondered about the life she led beyond the mansion. What secrets, what responsibilities, what struggles or missions did she carry every night, out of sight from the world? The ride was tense, silent, yet full of unspoken questions. Adrian's mind raced with possibilities. Was she meeting someone? Helping someone? Or perhaps trying to escape something he couldn't imagine? Every scenario seemed both plausible and impossible. And yet, as he followed her, he felt a strange thrill, like stepping into a story that was being written in real time, one that he had no script for. The familiar lines of control and order in his life were dissolving, replaced by the unpredictable rhythm of Lily's secret life. Eventually, Lily turned down a small, secluded street lined with old houses, their paint peeling, windows dim, and gardens overgrown. Adrian's eyes narrowed as he watched her stop in front of a particular building. It looked abandoned, almost forgotten, yet there was something alive about it. The faint glow of light from inside flickered through a dusty window, and the soft murmur of voices reached his ears. Adrian felt a mix of relief and tension. He was about to discover the truth, but he didn't know if he was ready for it. Adrian parked a safe distance away, his pulse steadying as he prepared to step into a world he had never imagined. He reminded himself to stay quiet, stay patient, and observe. Whatever Lily was doing inside that building, it clearly mattered to her deeply. And for the first time, Adrian realized that his curiosity had shifted into something more profound. It was no longer about simply uncovering a secret, it was about understanding her, understanding the courage it took to live a life hidden in plain sight. That night, as he watched her disappear into the building, Adrian felt a shiver of anticipation. Whatever lay beyond that door was a story he had been waiting to witness, a truth that would change everything he thought he knew about Lily, and perhaps, in a way, about himself. Adrian Clark followed Lily at a cautious distance, his heart pounding with anticipation. The streets were unusually quiet that night, the kind of silence that seemed to stretch and twist around every corner, amplifying each sound, the distant bark of a dog, the faint rustle of leaves, the soft hum of his own breathing. Lily moved with purpose, her steps measured, her small bag swinging lightly at her side. She didn't seem nervous or hesitant, only focused, as if she knew exactly where she was going. Adrian couldn't help but admire her poise, even as his curiosity surged like a tide he could no longer contain. The narrow street she turned onto felt forgotten by the world. Houses leaned slightly, paint chipped away by years of rain and neglect, their windows dark and lifeless. At first, Adrian assumed it was an abandoned neighborhood, the kind of place no one would notice if someone slipped through. Yet, there was something unusual about the way Lily stopped in front of a particular house. Unlike the others, it didn't feel dead. There was a faint golden glow from the windows, subtle yet unmistakable, and a quiet hum of life that seemed to pulse from within the walls. Adrian's breath caught in his throat. He had expected a simple errand, a secret meeting, or perhaps an empty building, but this house radiated something entirely different, something alive. He watched as Lily hesitated for a moment at the entrance, glancing around as if to make sure no one else was watching. Then, with a small, almost imperceptible nod to herself, she stepped inside. Adrian's pulse quickened. The door closed softly behind her, muffling the sounds from within. He stayed in the shadows, careful not to draw attention, yet leaning forward in his seat, desperate to catch even a glimpse of what lay inside. His imagination raced, conjuring every possible scenario, some mundane, others far darker. None of it prepared him for the reality he was about to discover. As he crept closer to the window, peering through the dimly lit glass, Adrian's eyes widened. Inside, he saw Lily moving with calm determination, not alone, but surrounded by a small group of children. They were young, ragged, and clearly in need, yet there was warmth in the room that the outside world could never see. Lily moved between them, handing out meals, helping them with lessons, and quietly comforting those who seemed frightened or withdrawn. The air was filled with soft chatter and laughter, the kind of laughter that comes from relief, safety, and the rare joy of feeling cared for. Adrian felt his assumptions shatter in an instant. He had imagined danger, deceit, or secretive romantic meetings. None of it was true. Lily's nightly disappearances were not about selfish secrecy, they were acts of kindness, hidden in the shadows, away from the scrutiny of a world that might never understand her compassion. She had been living a double life, not for her own gain, but for the sake of children who had no one else. He continued to watch, fascinated, as Lily patiently guided one child through reading, helped another with a simple math problem, and served a warm meal to the rest. Every movement she made was deliberate, caring, and selfless. Adrian's respect for her deepened with each passing second. The quiet maid who had seemed ordinary, almost invisible in the mansion, was in reality a guardian, a protector, and a source of hope for those who needed it most. Even as he observed from the shadows, Adrian realized something else. This was why she had been evasive. She didn't want recognition or praise. She didn't want him, or anyone, to know what she was doing, fearing that attention might disrupt the fragile world she had built for these children. Her secrecy was not deception, it was love, careful and protective. That night, Adrian leaned back slightly, processing what he had seen. Every step of his cautious pursuit, every moment of hidden observation, had led to this revelation. The mansion, with all its luxury and order, suddenly felt smaller, narrower, as if the true value of life existed in the small, unnoticed acts Lily carried out nightly. And for the first time, Adrian understood that the story of the quiet maid was far greater than he had imagined. It was a story of courage, compassion, and hidden heroism, waiting silently for the world to notice. As he retreated back into the shadows, Adrian felt a mixture of awe and determination. Lily's secret world was fragile, precious, and sacred. He knew that whatever he did next would need to be handled with care. He had uncovered a truth far beyond the mystery of nightly departures. It was a truth about humanity, about courage, and about the quiet power of selfless acts that could change lives, unseen by the rest of the world. Adrian Clark stayed hidden in the shadows, barely daring to breathe as he watched Lily move through the small, dimly lit room. What he had expected, danger, secrecy, maybe even betrayal, was nothing like the truth he now witnessed. Lily, the quiet maid who had seemed so ordinary in his grand mansion, was a guardian of something extraordinary. She moved with calm precision, handing out warm meals to children whose clothes were worn and faces pale with hunger, yet their eyes shone with gratitude and trust. Each child looked at her with a mix of awe and affection, and Adrian felt a pang of humility. This was a world he had never seen, a life hidden behind ordinary routines, and it was beautiful. He saw her crouch beside a small boy struggling to read a book. "It's okay, little one. Take it slow," she whispered, her hand gently guiding his over the words. The boy's lips quivered as he repeated the sounds, and when he got a word right, Lily's face lit up with a soft, proud smile. Then she turned to a group of slightly older children, helping them solve a simple math problem. One of the girls raised her hand timidly. "Miss Lily, do we have to go back to the streets tomorrow?" Lily shook her head firmly, her voice steady. "Not if I can help it. Tonight, you're safe." Adrian's chest tightened. This wasn't just charity, it was protection, care, and courage, all wrapped into one silent mission. For the first time, Adrian realized the depth of Lily's bravery. Every evening, she risked being caught, misunderstood, or judged. She carried her secret life alone, moving through the world with quiet heroism, never seeking recognition. And yet, she never faltered. The thought struck him hard: how often do people hide the true magnitude of their compassion? How many acts of courage go unseen because the world only notices the loud, the obvious, the flashy? Lily had chosen a different path: silent dedication, hidden good, unseen impact. Adrian's emotions were conflicted. Part of him wanted to rush inside, to confront her, to demand answers. Another part, the wiser part, urged patience. He had discovered something precious, fragile, and sacred. If he acted impulsively, he might shatter it. So he remained in the shadows, absorbing every detail: the careful way Lily arranged the meals, the patience in her tone, the way she knelt on the floor to meet the children's eyes at their level. He realized that everything she did was intentional, crafted to give these children a sense of dignity and love they rarely experienced elsewhere. Then he noticed something else: small personal touches that revealed her humanity even more. She had brought blankets from her own home, a few books that she had carefully preserved, and even some small toys, worn but lovingly kept. She spoke softly, encouragingly, never raising her voice, never scolding. Each child responded to her with trust, laughter, and a sense of relief. Adrian's respect for her deepened with every passing second. She wasn't just performing acts of kindness, she was creating a sanctuary, a world where these children could feel safe, even if only for a few hours each night. It was then that Adrian understood why she had been evasive at the mansion. She had feared judgment, not from him, but from the world. She knew that people might not understand, might not approve, or might even try to stop her. Her secrecy was a shield, one she had built carefully over time to protect the children and herself. Adrian felt a strange mix of guilt and admiration. He had assumed secrecy meant deceit, but now he saw it as courage. He realized he had been wrong to question her intentions so quickly. As the night wore on, Lily gathered the children for a small story, reading aloud with a gentle voice that filled the room with warmth. Adrian felt tears prick his eyes as he watched, overwhelmed by the depth of her heart. He understood then that his curiosity had led him to something far more important than simply uncovering a secret. He had discovered a hidden life of selflessness, a quiet heroism that demanded respect. And for the first time, he wondered how he could step into this world, not as an observer, but as an ally. That night, Adrian retreated to the shadows, knowing the next step would be crucial. He had learned who Lily really was, but now he had to decide what to do with this knowledge. Confront her. Support her. Or risk destroying the fragile world she had built with even the slightest misstep. One thing was certain, the quiet maid he thought he knew had changed everything about how he saw courage, compassion, and the hidden strength of ordinary people. Adrian Clark couldn't stop thinking about what he had witnessed the night before. Lily's secret world had revealed itself in ways he could never have imagined, a hidden life of courage, compassion, and quiet heroism. Yet, a part of him wrestled with the question of how to act. Should he confront her immediately, risking her trust and the fragile sanctuary she had created? Or should he remain a silent observer, honoring the secrecy she had so carefully maintained? The tension gnawed at him all day, gnawing away at his patience and leaving him restless. By evening, Adrian knew he could no longer wait. He had to speak with her, not out of suspicion, but out of respect, curiosity, and perhaps even admiration. As Lily finished her tasks in the mansion, arranging the rooms and double-checking the supplies, Adrian approached her quietly. He didn't want to startle her, and he wanted his intentions to be clear. "Lily," he began gently, "I need to speak with you. Can we go somewhere private?" Her hands froze for a brief moment, and her eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and caution. Adrian could see it clearly. She was afraid of being exposed, afraid that the world she had built for these children might be disrupted. Yet, something in his voice, calm, patient, and steady, seemed to reassure her. She nodded slowly, and together they walked to the study, closing the door behind them. The atmosphere was tense, yet charged with unspoken understanding. Adrian took a deep breath. "Lily," he said softly, "I know about your evenings. I followed you. I saw what you've been doing." He paused, watching her reaction closely. Her eyes widened, and she bit her lower lip, a small tremor running through her body. For a moment, the silence between them was deafening, filled with the weight of unspoken truths. I didn't want anyone to know," she whispered finally, her voice barely audible. "I was afraid it would cause problems. I just wanted to help them, to give them a little safety and hope." Her hands twisted nervously in front of her, and Adrian could see the sincerity in every line of her posture. There was no deceit, no hesitation, only a quiet courage he hadn't realized existed. Adrian leaned forward slightly, his expression a mixture of admiration and curiosity. "Lily, what you've been doing, it's incredible," he said. "I thought I was following a secret I didn't understand, but what I discovered was far more important than I could have imagined. You've been giving these children something the world often forgets: care, attention, and a safe place." Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked down, a blush of embarrassment coloring her cheeks. I didn't want to bring attention to them," she said. "If anyone knew, they might take the children away, or stop me. I couldn't risk it." Adrian nodded, understanding completely. She had built this world carefully, protecting not only the children but herself from judgment and interference. "I respect that," Adrian said quietly. "And I want to help, if you'll let me. Not to take over, not to interfere, but to support you. These children deserve more than secrecy, they deserve a chance, and you've been giving them that chance all on your own." For the first time, Lily looked at him with something more than caution. There was relief in her eyes, and a hint of hope, as if a weight she had carried alone for months was finally being acknowledged. I don't know if that's possible," she admitted. "People don't usually understand why someone would do this in secret." Adrian smiled gently. "I understand," he said. "And I want to be someone who does. I want to make sure your efforts continue without risking what you've built. You've been brave, selfless, and careful. Now, let's make it sustainable, together." For the first time, Lily allowed herself to relax, a small smile breaking through her nervousness. There was a sense of partnership forming, a quiet bond built not on authority or obligation, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. Adrian realized in that moment that this was more than just an employer-employee connection, it was the start of something extraordinary, a collaboration that could amplify the good Lily had been doing in secrecy. That night, as they spoke long into the evening, Adrian felt a profound sense of admiration and humility. He had come to uncover a secret, but instead, he had discovered courage, kindness, and resilience. And for Lily, the confrontation that could have been threatening became instead a turning point, a moment where trust and understanding replaced fear, and where the quiet maid who had vanished every evening could finally see the value of her work recognized by someone she trusted. After the confrontation, a quiet understanding settled between Adrian Clarke and Lily, a bond neither had anticipated but both instinctively felt. The air in the mansion that evening was different, less formal, less restrained, and yet filled with a new sense of purpose. Lily no longer carried the burden of secrecy alone, and Adrian felt a responsibility, not as an employer, but as a partner in something far greater than either of them had imagined. For weeks, the mansion's routine shifted subtly. Adrian allowed Lily more freedom to manage her evenings, no questions asked, trusting her judgment completely. But he didn't remain idle. He began making careful, discreet plans to support her mission without exposing the fragile world she had created. He contacted trusted friends in private charitable circles, arranged for additional resources, and even found ways to discreetly provide supplies and educational materials for the children Lily had been helping. All of this he did quietly, ensuring that her work remained safe, her sanctuary intact, and her independence respected. Lily, initially hesitant, soon realized that Adrian's involvement didn't threaten her efforts, it enhanced them. Together, they began strategizing how to expand the help she could offer, reaching more children in need without compromising their safety. Adrian suggested small improvements, a secure space where the children could stay temporarily, organized lessons, and even access to volunteers who could discreetly assist. Each idea was carefully weighed by Lily, who remained cautious but increasingly encouraged by Adrian's thoughtful support. Through this collaboration, a unique bond developed. It was not the typical dynamic of boss and maid, it was deeper, built on trust, mutual respect, and shared purpose. Adrian discovered qualities in Lily he had never expected: resourcefulness, quiet determination, and an unwavering moral compass. She, in turn, saw that Adrian's interest went beyond curiosity. He genuinely cared about the children and respected the sacrifices she had been making in silence. Slowly, walls of caution began to crumble, replaced by an unspoken partnership that strengthened with each passing day. Their evenings together were now filled with planning sessions, discreetly reviewing logistics for the next day's work, mapping safe routes for children, and finding ways to secure additional support. Lily's confidence grew, no longer carrying the entire weight of responsibility alone. Adrian, once a distant observer, became an active participant in a world he had barely imagined. He found himself inspired not just by Lily's courage, but by the resilience of the children she nurtured, and the silent victories that often went unnoticed. Even outside the mansion, the bond extended into small gestures that built trust further. Adrian ensured that Lily had what she needed without imposing, subtly providing financial support for supplies, arranging safe transportation, and even offering mentoring for some of the older children when appropriate. Lily, in turn, began to trust his judgment in matters that required discretion, allowing him to take small but impactful roles in maintaining the delicate ecosystem she had created. One evening, as they walked through the quiet streets after another successful night of delivering meals and tutoring, Lily paused and looked at Adrian. "I never thought anyone would understand why I do this," she admitted softly. "I was always afraid someone would take it away from them, or misunderstand my intentions." Adrian smiled, a warmth in his voice. "I understand, Lily. And now, you don't have to do it alone. Together, we can make a bigger difference without compromising what you've built. You've been brave enough to do this alone. Let me be brave enough to help you." For the first time, Lily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The burden of secrecy, the fear of being misunderstood, and the loneliness of carrying such a mission alone were replaced with partnership, understanding, and the shared goal of protecting and empowering the children. It was a bond formed not from obligation, but from shared vision, a bond stronger than trust alone, rooted in compassion, respect, and dedication. That night, as they returned to the mansion, Adrian felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything he had known. He had discovered a hidden world of courage and kindness, and now, he was part of it. Lily, once isolated in her mission, now had a reliable ally, someone who valued her courage and shared her commitment to doing good. Together, they became more than the sum of their parts, a team capable of transforming lives quietly, compassionately, and effectively, leaving an impact that would ripple far beyond the quiet streets they walked each night. The nights continued as they always had, yet nothing felt the same. Lily still left the mansion quietly each evening, her small bag in hand, but now she did not move alone. Adrian Clark followed discreetly, not out of suspicion, but as a partner in the quiet mission that had transformed both their lives. The streets were still dark and silent, the world oblivious to the small acts of heroism unfolding behind closed doors. Yet in the shadows, change was quietly taking root, and with each night, their bond and purpose grew stronger. Over time, the hidden house became a haven, a place of safety, warmth, and learning for the children who had once faced nothing but uncertainty and neglect. Adrian had helped expand the space, carefully improving the lighting, adding basic supplies, and creating a system where the children could receive consistent support. Volunteers, carefully vetted and trained, joined the effort quietly, always respecting Lily's rules of discretion. And yet, even as the operation grew, it remained largely invisible to the outside world. That was the way Lily wanted it, and Adrian respected her wisdom. Together, they created routines that allowed the children to flourish. Mornings were filled with lessons, afternoons with art and reading, and evenings with the simple comfort of hot meals and a safe place to sleep. Each success, no matter how small, became a quiet victory, a reminder that compassion could thrive even in the shadows. Adrian often marveled at Lily's energy and patience. She moved among the children with a quiet authority, guiding, comforting, and inspiring them, her dedication unwavering. It was impossible not to be moved by her courage, and Adrian realized that her actions had forever changed his understanding of leadership, humanity, and the true meaning of generosity. The bond between Adrian and Lily deepened with each passing day. They communicated without tension, respecting each other's judgment and ideas, and worked seamlessly to ensure the mission continued smoothly. Lily, once cautious and wary of outsiders, began to trust him completely. Adrian, once merely an observer, became an integral part of the mission, learning lessons of humility and patience from someone he had once underestimated. Together, they formed a partnership built not on authority, but on shared purpose, respect, and an unwavering commitment to the children who depended on them. What struck Adrian most was how little recognition mattered to Lily. She never sought praise, never boasted of her deeds, and never let the world see the impact she was making. Her heroism was quiet, humble, and steady, a legacy built on compassion rather than applause. And yet, in those small, unseen acts, she changed lives every day. Adrian often thought about the irony: the most powerful person he knew in the world, himself, had been introduced to the truest form of power through the quiet courage of a maid who vanished every evening. Even as the children's lives improved, Lily remained vigilant. Every step of the way, she ensured that the mission retained its integrity and secrecy. She had learned that kindness, when handled recklessly, could be fragile. Adrian supported her in this, offering resources, guidance, and protection, but never overstepping. Together, they nurtured an ecosystem where hope could grow, safe from the judgment or interference of the outside world. One night, as they closed the doors of the small house and walked back to the mansion, the air was filled with a quiet sense of accomplishment. The children were safe, fed, and cared for, their laughter lingering in the corridors long after they had gone to bed. Adrian glanced at Lily, noticing the soft glow in her eyes, a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. "You've built something extraordinary," he said softly. Lily smiled faintly, shaking her head. "No, Adrian. We built it. Together." Her words carried the weight of truth. Alone, she had been courageous, but their partnership had transformed courage into something lasting, sustainable, and far-reaching. Together, they had created more than a sanctuary, they had created a legacy. As they returned to the mansion that night, Adrian understood fully what he had learned from the quiet maid who vanished every evening. True heroism does not seek recognition. True courage does not need witnesses. And the most profound impact often comes from small, consistent acts of love and dedication, carried out with patience, care, and unwavering resolve. The legacy of their work endured, not in headlines or fame, but in the lives of the children who now slept safely at night, who laughed freely, who dreamed boldly. And in the quiet corners of the city, where the world remained unaware, a maid and her billionaire partner continued their nightly missions, shaping a future built on secrecy, compassion, and the silent power of a heart determined to do good.